It's always been very consistent. It didn't lose its identity as a Jimny.
This thing is so tiny.
Hello.
Hello. So what are we driving today, Paolo?
This is the Suzuki Jimny GLX with two-tone colorway.
So, this is the Suzuki Jimny. It is the latest generation of an extremely popular car. It's supposed to be a big jump up from the previous one, which we have found. Tell me a little bit about this car.
So this is the fourth generation. The first generation came out in 1970, the second one in 81, and the third one in 98. So there's a pretty big gap before they released new ones. So this car has a bit of a cult following, similar to how the FJs are, the Wranglers, and the Land Rovers. So they're built for a specific reason, for off-roading.
There are guys who do the off-roading thing, and they fully believe in the Suzuki Jimny platform because of its size and its ability and its lightness. Now it's drawing a whole new group because it's so cute and it looks so nice. People that normally wouldn't be looking at this car are getting it. It's one of those, like, just get one because it looks so cool.
What's interesting about the Jimnys are, in terms of the car's design language, it's always been very consistent. It didn't lose its identity as a Jimny. For example, the circular headlights, they've always been there ever since the first one. The taillights, the typical rectangular ones you see in older off-roaders, they didn't change that. The grille, even the side of the hood, it's similar to the third generation. Even if they have maintained that kind of design, they managed to make it look very modern. I like the boxy look.
Well, it's modern looking, but it's also kind of old school looking.
The moment you see the car, you know it's going to be a classic.
It's not exactly a high-speed car.
It's not. It has 101 horsepower. It has a 1.5 liter gasoline engine with a 4-speed automatic transmission.
It's not a huge engine, but it's also not very heavy as a car.
It just weighs 1.6 tons. It has 2,250 millimeters in terms of the wheelbase.
But how did you feel driving it around? I mean, it is a short wheelbase off-roader.
It was very maneuverable and it was okay to drive in the city. It's because it's narrower than your usual car.
It was super easy to drive in traffic. It's so tiny.
Very, very.
This does have actually a rear view camera, which is actually very useful to me. Number one, because it does have that spare tire. And number two, you're just kind of not used to having a car this short.
Yep.
So having a rear view camera, which is actually pretty good, was very useful.
I just had to keep in mind whenever I park, I have to make sure to leave a bit of space, especially if I'm going to unload or load cargo, because the trunk is a bit huge.
That's true. And the door opens sideways.
Sideways, yeah.
It's actually a lot of door to be aware of.
And also the fenders, because they're a bit popping out. So I had to keep in mind those things. In terms of the ride, of course, it's a bit bumpier than your usual subcompact crossover or hatchbacks.
This is okay. Now we're on a cement surface and you are getting some shock.
Yep.
If you can see it, we're getting shock transmitted up here. So understand this is a small, short wheelbase ladder frame vehicle. So it's not going to be sloshy comfortable.
Yep.
Like that.
Yeah, the back especially, you can really feel it.
Yeah, but just as long as you understand that, then be aware of it, that's all.
It's a proper off-roader. If you think about its rivals, you have the FJ Cruiser, the Jeep Wrangler, the Land Rover Defender. Those are pretty big vehicles. A huge selling point about this was once the price. Like, those cars cost more than 2 million at least. This one is just at 1.175. And this is already the top of the line. And what those cars can do in like an off-road stage, this car can do as well. It's a leather frame chassis. It makes it more rigid. It's stronger, so it can take rougher surfaces, which of course you would automatically think of with the Jimny.
So that's what makes it a proper off-roader. That's what also makes it less soft a ride than the crossovers.
And then the wheels brake. So for example, if you're in a steep surface, the car sends power to the wheels that touches the ground. So it doesn't waste power on a wheel that's, up in the air.
Yes.
If you're in a trail, which I think comes standard now with proper 4x4s and off-roaders.
It's got the real old school 2 high, 4 low.
Because usually in pickups nowadays, in SUVs that have 4x4, they have like a dial to switch mechanically.
Yeah.
But this one still has the old school one, which I like. And one pro for the Jimny is its size. If you're in like a trail that's a bit tight, this one is the one you'd want to have.
Okay. So it's basically a proper off-roader, it's just smaller.
So it doesn't compromise. It doesn't
but half the price of the bigger one.
Yes.
Okay.
Even probably more than half
the
for
price.
some.
Yeah. And yet you come away with it with a car that you actually enjoy and you're kind of happy about having.
Yeah. Moving on to the interior. It's pretty basic. No silver accents like you would see in modern cars these days. It's all black. And of course, as an off-roader, a lot of hard plastic, especially on the lower parts of the car. So if you go off-roading, you get mud into it, you just wash it off. And you can see that in the back. The trunk doesn't have a carpet.
When you fold it back down, it's all just plastic.
I also like the dials. It has this big touchscreen in the middle. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, but the Bluetooth works fine. And it's very responsive.
You know, the off-road thing where they tell you the incline and so on. They actually have that digitally here, and I kind of like that.
The switches for the aux, USB, and the 12-volt socket. It's very tightly closed. I think there's a purpose for that because, you know, if it gets wet, it won't really go in.
If you flood the car, you'll still survive.
Yep.
The whole thing just works. Visually, it's quite pleasant. It's Spartan, but not bare.
It still has that old school feel, but you don't feel like you're in an old car. Speaking of interior, by the way, of course it has second row seats, but when Carl tried to sit on it a few days ago, he was like, okay, never mind, I'm gonna go back to the
Yeah, I
front
didn't ride it. I could fit into it. There's no way I'm crossing my legs. Luckily, the inside of the interior part of the seats that faces the guy in the second row actually flexes. So your knees are hitting empty space that is flexing.
They did what they could to
They
make
did.
it more spacious.
Yeah.
And the cargo area, it only has 85 liters of space if the second row seats are up. So not much
If the seats are up.
if the seats are up.
You know, you gotta understand, this is a tiny car. Who's this car for, Paolo, besides you?
Okay. Oh, for sure, I like it. You have the off-road guys who want to look at their options. Yeah. And then just for regular drivers, road users, it can also be like a new car driver, like something you get for your kid. I mean, because of the looks, like it really appeals
Yeah.
to almost everyone.
It'll get them excited about driving.
That's true. The question is it practical? It would depend on how you go about your everyday driving. If it's just you, then this would make a really good daily car. But if you have a family, even just one kid, it might not be too practical. Speaking of efficiency, in the city with extra traffic rush hour, for the whole day I did 9.6 to 9.7 kilometers per liter.
That's not bad at all.
When I was driving it late at night, I was doing above 10 kilometers per liter.
I mean, it's not insanely good, but it's not bad.
Yep, that's the combination of the small engine and the light structure of the car at the work.
That's true. Remember what the Suzuki president said? He said, please remember, we only make small vehicles. We concentrate on them, we do our best with them.
That's what I appreciate about Suzuki. They've always had that identity and they always impress in that department.
Yeah. Well, personally, when I look at a car like this, it's one of those cars that says, okay, what can I put up with? The fact that I really like the way it looks and I like the whole idea of design around it, that's a plus for me and I'm willing to give other things up. What would move, as we say this, we're going over the rough roads, what would move me away from this car most of all would be the fact that it is a ladder frame, definitely not as smooth as a sedan or a crossover. So the issues I have with this car would be the same issues I have with pickups in general. I guess if you're stuck in EDSA, in traffic, the roughness isn't going to get to you because you're not going fast enough. Otherwise, we went through some rather rough off-road experience. This car is so tiny, I'm not worried about it hitting any rocks, I'm not worried about anything.
Exactly.
It's a whole list of stuff you can change on this car if you want to. The problem I have, if I wanted to go overlanding, which is kind of what I want to try and do, this is just too small. I couldn't bring that many people with me. So you gotta be aware of the fact that it is a stiff ride, and you gotta be aware of the fact that, you know, there's not a lot of space. Would this be your emergency evacuation vehicle? It doesn't have enough space for you and your family.
But it can take the rough.
It
Like, for
can
example,
take-
if there's a zombie apocalypse, there's like trash everywhere, like debris everywhere.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be a problem.
you could, except the problem there is that there's only not
But you
enough
can't
space
sleep
for
in it.
you and your stuff. Yeah, so
If you're off-roading, overlanding, you need to have a friend who has an FJ
yeah.
or a Wrangler. Hey, can I put some of my stuff in your car?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But okay, take all that away. Is this adorable enough for you to make you buy it? And the answer is yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's the thing. All the intelligent stuff goes out the window because you just like the car so much.
True.
So there we go. Paolo likes it a lot. I like it, but I don't know if I would put up with it. But, you know, I don't make the smartest decisions either. So who knows?